The cardboard beneath them did nothing to stop the December cold from seeping into their bones. Sarah pulled her daughter closer, trying to shield the 6-year-old from the biting wind that whipped through the downtown subway entrance where they'd taken shelter. Around them, the sounds of the city preparing for Christmas felt like a cruel symphony, cheerful music spilling from storefronts, laughter of families loaded with shopping bags, the distant jingle of a Salvation Army bell. "Mommy, why did Santa skip our chimney again?" Emma's voice was small, muffled against Sarah's worn coat. The question pierced Sarah's heart like a physical wound. How do you explain to a child that Santa doesn't visit subway stations? That chimneys belong to homes, and they didn't have one anymore. She opened her mouth, searching for words that wouldn't crush what little hope remained in her daughter's eyes, when a gravelly voice spoke from the shadows beside them. "Santa didn't skip you, little one. He's just running late this year." Sarah instinctively pulled Emma tighter, turning to face the source of the voice. An elderly man sat against the concrete wall, barely visible in the dim light. His weathered face was framed by a wild gray beard, and his eyes, though surrounded by wrinkles carved deep by hardship, held an unexpected warmth. His shopping cart, filled with what looked like his entire life, sat beside him. "I'm sorry, we didn't mean to intrude on your spot," Sarah said quickly, preparing to gather their few belongings and move on. In their 3 months on the streets, she'd learned that territory mattered, that survival often meant solitude. The man raised a trembling hand. "Stay. There's room enough for all of God's children, especially on a night like this." He coughed, a rattling sound that spoke of too many winters spent in the cold. "Besides, I couldn't help but overhear the young lady's question. And it deserves a proper answer." Emma peeked out from her mother's embrace, curiosity temporarily overriding her shyness. "You know about Santa?" The old man's eyes crinkled with a smile. "I know a great many things about Santa. In fact, I used to help him, many years ago." He shifted, wincing slightly, and pulled a tattered blanket from his cart. "Here, you two need this more than I do tonight." "No, we couldn't," Sarah began, but the man was already draping the blanket over Emma's small frame. "The name's Frank," he said. "And refusing kindness is about the worst thing you can do to someone trying to give it. Trust me, I know." There was something in his voice, a story beneath the words, that made Sarah accept the blanket with a quiet, "Thank you." Emma snuggled into its folds, and for the first time in hours, Sarah saw her daughter's shoulders relax slightly. "So Santa's really coming?" Emma asked Frank, hope lighting up her pale face. Frank was quiet for a moment, studying the little girl with an intensity that made Sarah uncomfortable. Then he spoke, his voice softer than before. "Tell me, Emma, that is your name, isn't it? I heard your mama say it. What would you ask Santa for if you could?" Emma didn't hesitate. "A home, with a real bed, and a kitchen where mommy can make her spaghetti again. She makes the best spaghetti in the whole world." She paused, then added in a whisper, "and maybe some shoes that fit. Mine are too small, but I don't mind really." Sarah felt tears burning her eyes. They'd lost everything 6 months ago when the factory closed and she couldn't make rent. Her parents were gone, her sister estranged after a fight years ago that pride had kept her from mending. She'd tried, she'd tried, but minimum wage jobs didn't cover childcare, and without childcare, she couldn't work, and without work. It was a spiral she couldn't escape. "Those are good wishes," Frank said gently. He reached into his cart and pulled out a small cloth bag. From it, he extracted what looked like a candy cane, slightly crushed but still wrapped. "This was supposed to be for well, it doesn't matter now. Here, Emma. A down payment from Santa." "Frank, really, you don't have to," Sarah started. "I don't have to do anything," Frank interrupted, but his tone was kind. "I want to." He watched Emma carefully unwrap the candy, her small fingers treating it like the treasure it was. "You know, Sarah, I'm guessing that's your name. You remind me of my daughter." The words hung in the cold air. Sarah waited, sensing there was more. "She had your eyes. That same mix of steel and sorrow, determination and desperation." Frank's gaze drifted to the distant street where holiday lights twinkled mockingly. "She tried to help me once, my Jennifer. When I was younger and foolish and thought pride was more important than family. I'd lost my business, lost everything really, but I was too stubborn to accept her help. Told her I didn't need anyone's charity, especially not from my own daughter." He coughed again, harder this time. Sarah noticed his lips had a slight blue tinge. That was 15 years ago. I haven't seen her since. Pride's a terrible thing, you see. It keeps you warm when you should be seeking shelter, makes you push away the very people who love you most. Emma had finished the candy cane and was now leaning against Sarah, fighting sleep. Frank watched her with an expression Sarah couldn't quite read, regret mixed with something else, something that looked almost like peace. I've spent every Christmas since then here, Frank continued, his voice growing weaker. Hoping maybe she'd come looking. Hoping I'd get the chance to tell her I was sorry, that I was a fool, that she was right to offer help and I was wrong to refuse it. He looked directly at Sarah now. Don't let pride make you a ghost, Sarah. Don't let it steal your future the way it stole mine. Before Sarah could respond, Frank reached deep into his cart and pulled out a worn envelope. His hands shook as he held it out. Inside this is an address. My daughter's last known address. I've been too cowardly to use it, too afraid she wouldn't want to see me. But you're brave. Braver than I ever was. Tomorrow morning, I want you to go there. Tell her Frank sent you. Tell her I said it's time to stop letting pride win. I don't understand, Sarah whispered, taking the envelope with trembling fingers. Jennifer runs a family shelter now. Ironic, isn't it? Frank's smile was sad but genuine. She built it for people like us, like me, though she doesn't know I'm here. It has beds, a kitchen, job training, childcare. Everything you need to get back on your feet. He looked at Emma, now asleep. Everything she needs to believe in Santa again. Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. Why are you giving this to me? Why not go yourself? Frank leaned his head back against the wall, and Sarah noticed how shallow his breathing had become. Because I'm tired, Sarah. So very tired. And because sometimes the greatest gift we can give isn't to ourselves. It's making sure someone else doesn't make our mistakes. His eyes were beginning to close. Promise me you'll go. Promise me you won't let pride keep you from accepting help. Promise me Emma will have that home she wished for. I promise, Sarah said, her voice breaking. But Frank, should I call someone? Already called, he murmured, so softly she had to lean in to hear. Left a message for Jennifer. Told her everything. Where I am. That I'm sorry. That I love her. A peaceful smile crossed his weathered face. And I told her about the woman and little girl she'd find here in the morning. Told her to take special care of you both. As the sound of sirens began to wail in the distance, Frank's eyes opened one last time. You see, Emma, he whispered, though the child was already asleep, Santa didn't skip you at all. Sometimes he just works in mysterious ways. The paramedics arrived 10 minutes later, along with a woman in her 40s with dark hair and eyes that widened in shock when she saw Frank. She fell to her knees beside him, taking his cold hand in hers, 15 years of walls crumbling in an instant. Sarah learned later that Frank made it through the night, that the reunion with his daughter happened in a hospital room filled with tears and forgiveness. She learned that Jennifer's shelter had a room waiting for them, just as Frank had promised. She learned that sometimes the people who seem to have the least to give end up giving everything that matters. But in that moment, as Jennifer looked up from her father to Sarah and Emma, as their eyes met in understanding and shared grief and unexpected hope, Sarah understood something profound. The Christmas miracle wasn't in the shelter or the second chance or even in the reconciliation of a father and daughter. It was in the reminder that kindness costs nothing yet pays immeasurable dividends. That humanity persists even in the darkest corners. That sometimes we're not meant to survive alone, and accepting help isn't weakness, it's the bravest thing we can do. Emma woke on Christmas morning in a real bed, in a warm room, to the smell of breakfast cooking. When she asked if Santa had finally found them, Sarah smiled through happy tears and said yes. Yes, he had. He'd looked like a homeless man in a subway station, and he'd given them the greatest gift of all, hope, wrapped in humility and tied with the understanding that we're all just one bad day away from needing grace. And somewhere in that hospital room, an old man who'd spent 15 years in the cold finally came home.